All right, this is to pick up where we left off on this problem. This is part 2 of the video for long division on polynomials. If you're starting from here and you didn't see part 1, please stop and go see part 1 first. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. Or continue. So what we did is we took a look and we found that negative 2x, if we multiply that by x, we would end up with negative 2x squared, and then we would multiply negative 2x times 2, and that would give us our negative 4x. So I was just at the point where we were going to go ahead and subtract that from the term negative 2x squared plus 0x. So when we subtract it, that is going to change our signs. So it's going to change from a positive, or from a negative to a positive. And we're going to go ahead and end up adding these together would give us 0. And then 0x to the first plus 4x, that's just going to give us 4x, or leave us with 4x. And what we're going to do now is take a look and see, what do I multiply x to give me 4x? And that's just 4. So when I multiply 4 by x, we're going to end up with 4x, and I apologize, we need to bring down this 8, okay? But notice how we're only really focusing on that first term to determine what our dividend is going to end up, our quotient is going to end up being. Okay, so 4 times 2 is going to give us 8 plus 8. And now we're going to go ahead and subtract. So we're going to subtract, and I'm going to do that in a different color so you guys can see it. So we're going to end up subtracting 4x, and we're also going to subtract 8. So 4x minus 4x is just going to give us 0, and x minus 8, or 8 minus 8 is going to give us 0 as well. So what this tells us is that there is no remainder. Okay, so because there is no remainder, or remainder is 0, x plus 2 is a factor. Okay, of our original x cubed plus 8. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to see something similar to that in the future with difference of cubes and sum of cubes, but that's going to be later. Let's go ahead and take a look at our last example. Now, looking at this, I'm going to show you a different technique of how to divide. We can only divide when you ever see x to the x squared. That's a quadratic equation. When you're dividing by a quadratic equation, the only way you can do that is with long division. Okay, so let's go ahead and set it up just like we would with the other equations. So we're going to end up, our dividend is on the inside, so x to the 4th plus x cubed plus x minus 1. But look out, we're missing an x squared. So we actually need to back it up and take a look and put a placeholder in for x squared, because it's not there, minus 1. Okay. All right, so on the outside is going to be your divisor, so that's going to end up being x squared plus 2x minus 1. So what we're going to do next is we're going to see from this first term, what do I need to multiply x squared so that it becomes 2x to the 4th? So if 1 times what gives me 2, that's going to give me 1 times 2 gives me 2. X squared times what gives me x to the 4th, and that's just going to end up giving me being x squared. Next step, we need to go ahead and distribute that 2x squared to the terms on the outside, our divisor, so that we can subtract it away from our polynomial. So we end up with 2 times 1, which is just going to end up being 2x to the 4th, okay, plus 2x times 2x squared, which is just going to give us a positive 4x to the 3rd, which should line up with our x to the 3rd here. Okay, now next step is we're going to go ahead and 2x times negative 1, which would just end up being negative 2x squared. Next step, we're going to go ahead and divide, so it's going to end up being change the signs. So instead of a negative, we're going to end up with a positive. Instead of a positive, we're going to end up with a negative. Okay, what we would now go ahead and combine terms. So 2x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth is just going to give me 0. X to the third minus 3x to the third, that would just end up being negative 3x to the third plus 2x squared. Okay, bring down a term. Now we need to go ahead and take a look to see, keep this color. We need to take a look at this first term again, which I need to delete this. There we go. We're going to take a look at this first term and this first term to see what do we need to multiply 1x squared to get negative 3x cubed. So let's start with the coefficients. 1 times what gives me negative 3, and that's just negative 3. X squared times what gives me x to the third, and that's just x. Next step is we're going to take a look at distributing that negative 3. So we're going to end up with negative 3x times x squared, which is just negative 3x cubed. If that term isn't the same as this term, you need to go ahead and double check your math and go back, because this number may need to be different. All right, so then we're going to end up with negative 3x times 2x, which is going to end up being negative 6x squared, negative 3 times negative 1, which is going to become positive 3x. Okay, I'm going to erase all these lines going crazy up here. Okay. Next step, we're going to go ahead and subtract. So I'm going to draw the line and subtract these terms. So if we are subtracting, remember to distribute that negative, this would become a positive value, and this would become negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and subtract. Negative 3x cubed plus 3x cubed just becomes 0, and then we're going to end up with 2x cubed squared plus 6x squared, which is going to become 8x squared, and 1 minus 3. X is going to give us negative 2x. Bring down our last term here, which is negative 1, and we need to go ahead and take a look to see what would multiply with 1x squared. That would give me 8x squared, and that would just be a positive 8. Now we need to go ahead and distribute, let's see if I can move this up a little. Nope, here we go. We need to distribute that 8 to the terms, so we would end up with 8x squared plus 16x minus 8. Okay, erase those distribution lines, or arcs. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take a look. We already used that color. I'm on green. Okay, we're going to go ahead and subtract those terms that we just created away from our polynomial here. So this negative sign becomes positive, and this becomes 0. So 8x squared minus 8x squared just becomes 0. Negative 2 minus 16 becomes negative 18x. Negative 1 plus 8 just becomes plus 7. Now in this case, our next step is to take a look to see if we can multiply anything from our first term, x squared, to see if it would become negative 18x. Now notice how if this is x squared, there's nothing that we can multiply that is going to end up giving us a positive 1 exponent, and kind of create a situation where we would have no remainder. What we're going to do next is we're going to rewrite this with our remainder, negative 18x plus 7. And the way that you would write that algebraically is just 2x squared minus 3x plus 8, okay, plus our remainder. Now our remainder in this case is negative 18x. The reason why I have plus is because if I wrote negative, then it would distribute to that 7. So this would end up being plus negative 18x plus 7, all divided by our divisor, which remember is our denominator from our original fraction, the number that's on the outside of our division problem here. So that would just be x squared plus 2x minus 1. Okay, that would be, whoops, Sorry about that. That would be our final answer if we were writing it out algebraically. Now, if you're working on Khan Academy, it's going to ask you, hey, what's the quotient? The quotient is just going to be 2x squared minus 3x plus 8, and then it's going to also ask, hey, what's the remainder? That's going to be in a second box, so that's just going to be negative 18 plus, or negative 18x plus 7. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can always come on a Zoom session as well. I can definitely help you out then. But otherwise, I hope you guys are doing okay and staying safe. Thank you. Bye.